Welcome to the Troxel Podcast. I'm Evan Troxel, and in this episode, I welcome Ashley Hastings. Ashley is a studio design technology leader at Woods Bagot, where she's helping redefine what it means to lead with curiosity inside a global architecture firm. With a background that bridges business, architecture, and data, Ashley brings a systemic lens to how ideas move from experimentation into practice. She joined Woods Bagot at a pivotal moment, just as GPT entered the mainstream, forcing every practice to re-examine how they capture, share, and act on knowledge. In this episode, we explore what it means to make exploration measurable, repeatable, and valued at the organizational level rather than left to individual initiatives. What happens when curiosity is incentivized instead of squeezed between deadlines, and how firms can use it to drive learning, innovation, and retention. Along the way, Ashley unpacks how viewing Revit as a database changed how she thought about design information, why training needs to be treated like a product inside firms, and how post-GPT workflows reward context over keywords. We also reflect on what it takes to turn design technology from a collection of tools into a sustained capability, one that's measured not just by software adoption, but by how much smarter the organization becomes because of it. Something that really stands out to me in this conversation is the notion of curiosity as a KPI, as the title suggests. In an industry built on solving complex problems, curiosity isn't a luxury. It is actually the engine that keeps practice evolving. We talk about how to operationalize it through mentorship programs, learning budgets, and leadership KPIs that reward inquiry instead of punishing uncertainty. As usual, there's more information worth your time in the show notes, so be sure to check that out. You can find them directly in your podcast app if you are a supporting member of Troxel Plus. And if you're a free member, you can find them over at the website, which is trxl.co. So now without further ado, I bring you my wonderful conversation with Ashley Hastings. Ashley, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you. Great to see you again.
Thanks so much, Evan. Yeah, it's great to see you too. Feels like we were just at Confluence.
It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like it's been a decade.
Oh, okay, great. Maybe you do more things than I do.
Oh, no. I'm just getting older. Thanks. Yeah.
Time feels shorter.
Yes. The older you get, the shorter it goes. I have a theory about that. But anyway, a lot's changed, I think, in the last 2.5, 3 years since, especially for you professionally, geographically, things like that. And then also technology-wise. And so maybe you can well, first of all, I would love to hear your story about your trajectory through the architectural profession.
Yeah.
Because I think that would kind of set the stage and give other people some, obviously some context around what you've done. And now then we can move into what you're doing. But let's just start with the Ashley Hastings story.
Yeah, it's all a blur. First off, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. Excited to see you again. It's been about a little over 2 years. My trajectory has not ever been linear. And I got to architecture by way of all natural things. Like I studied international business for undergrad, and I was in the Air Force for a few years. And then that career was at the time very dramatically for me cut short because of a medical disqualification at the time. And so I had planned to be a pilot in the Air Force. That was the original trajectory.
Okay.
And when that all changed, I had a moment of going, well, what was that about? Why did I go through all of that? And why did I learn so much and get so far? And then it went away. And a love of aviation has always been a thing for me. And I made a lot of connections in my head when I was doing that soul searching after the fact. And I used to travel a lot with my family growing up, and I was fortunate enough to see a lot of the world very early. And I remember going and just seeing cities, just new cities, and experiencing what it meant to be in other places and what it meant to wander around other places. And this is going to sound like a kind of crazy parallel, but my love of aviation and aircraft got me to architecture. And it started with a love of cities, and then you kind of zoom in and you focus on the buildings. But for me, it was always the kind of the city system or the infrastructure that made a place really special, or for better or for worse, right? And so when I was going through this time in my life where I was wondering where I was supposed to go next, I had a moment of saying, I got it. I'm going to be an architect. And that is not that is not the typical I played with Legos and I loved drawing when I was little. I did love those things. No question. There's a lot of Lego in this room, actually. But that was not the typical kind of pathway to architecture. And so I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a graduate program.
I want to ask you though. You said you got it. So did this come? Where did this come from? Did it come from the inner voice? Did it come from somewhere else?
Definitely. So road trips in California.
Okay.
Always the best thing. I was, and because you sit in traffic for so long.
Yes.
It was one of those moments. I was actually driving back with some friends from Malibu back to Los Angeles at the time. This was 2012. And it was one of those. I was driving. It was evening. You had a lot of time to think, and
you're just on like autopilot.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
safely.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And it was just one of those kind of lightning bolt moments, which I think they're rare, and rightfully so. I don't think people should be having those all the time, but it was a really clear moment for me where I was like, okay, architecture, onward. What do I need to do?
This thing though is so interesting, right? Like this, I'm sorry for kind of belaboring this, but it's like the subconscious has been working on this for a while, and then it revealed it to you, right? And I've definitely recognized like the power of that, and like I even have a reliance on it. It's like I think as architects, especially, and maybe you didn't even have any training at this point, but we'll continue the story in a minute. But it's like, as an architect, I was trained to take in a bunch of inputs. And just let it simmer, right? Like you don't have to actively be, and I'm going to use my air quotes, like designing, right? Because designing happens when it doesn't usually happen on command. Like the ideas don't just flow out. Like you can easily, well, not easily, you can get to that point where because you have built the muscles to do that thing, then you sit down to do that thing and it actually happens. But for most people, that's not how it works. That's not how creativity really works. But even in this thing, you got this message and it was like, well, like it didn't have no context, right? It's like something had been brewing for a while, and then you were just kind of available because you were in this contemplative state, the dulcet tones of the 101 or whatever you were on coming back from Malibu, sitting in traffic. And yes, I'm from California. I say the
exactly.
101.
They're all, it's a personal relationship we all have with them.
Yes, right. But you were available, and in that state that kind of thing just delivers on. And I think I just wanted to put some emphasis on it because I think that's important, is like to listen for those things, but also to have a little bit of a acknowledgement that we can have a reliance on them too, and they're not just magic.
Yeah. Well, and it's okay to sit with your thoughts as well, because everything that you just said, Evan, is really such an interesting parallel to where we are right now, which I won't get there yet, but just where we are right now with AI, right? And a lot of the kind of availability of instant gratification and all of that. But we'll
distraction.
We'll get there. Also, I'm kind of I'm surprised I just said all of that in terms of kind of origin story. So thank you for kind of opening that bit. But from there, that moment of going, aha, architect. And by the way, I don't practice. Um, so
I was gonna say, did you know what that even meant?
no, I didn't. I really
Okay.
didn't. But I did have that sort of innate love of building and structure. You try to build a tree house when you're a child, and
Mm.
not very high off the ground, but yeah, just Lego and Connects and like all of the things, erector sets, like everything was there, but nothing ever really pointed directly at architecture. Um, and I'm glad of that actually, because this wandering path has been really interesting. Um, but yeah, so at the time I was like, okay, what can I do? I enrolled in some classes at UCLA for their interior architecture program. I was still very new in LA, by the way. I'd just kind of gotten there early 2012 at the time. And yeah, I did some courses at UCLA, which living on the East Side was a journey every few days. I started some classes at Art Center at night as well, which was really fun. And I started working with, I got a job as like a personal assistant for a general contractor in LA, and we were doing like uh, nightclubs and bars in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, and I didn't know anything, and it was
Hmm.
um, fun and crazy and overwhelming, and you just kind of go and do all the things, and um, and that was pretty wild. And so I was in that space for a few years and uh, changed contractors. So I got the construction side kind of first, I want to say, while I was doing the classes and kind of I was learning. I did some hand drafting classes, so I ticked that box. Um, I did some AutoCAD classes, which I've still never understood the structure for AutoCAD. Like, how do you name the layers? I don't understand. I'm sure there's a logic to it, but yeah, kind of went through maybe very fast track path to eventually develop a portfolio. And I remember going to, was it Blick in Pasadena, and just say, I need to make a portfolio. What does that include? And this
Right.
was before I'd done anything. I was just like, what do I need exactly?
Right.
And so, yeah, it was quite a kind of patchwork of um, intense curiosity, like actions and kind of exploration for a few years, and um, and then ultimately I was looking at graduate schools. I also got really involved with the Association for Women in Architecture and Design, so AWA plus D,
Mm.
big shout out. Got involved in their mentorship program, and had an incredible mentor who's now an incredible friend and has been for a long time. Um, Stephanie Wright, we'll just do a little shout out there. And she really helped guide me to, she's like, live where you want to go to grad school where you want to work. And so the options for me at the time were, yeah, UCLA, because I was then familiar with it, and then SciArc. And a couple of things went into that decision. First of which was sort of geography. I was always an East Sider in LA. And SciArc really presented itself as um, a challenge. And I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to be uncomfortable. And
Mm.
because I'm not a formalist, which is
Mm.
a term I learned after I got there. And I'm
Yeah.
not
I'm sure you learned it the hard way.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
um, but there were so many incredible moments of just getting to that point. And I did the summer program at SciArc, making a meaning, which is now this incredible like offering of cool weirdness and really in depth. Like it wasn't just materials now, or like it was materials for us, and it was kind of um, just before a lot of digital interaction, and
Mm.
so it's just changed so much. Like our class, we were the first ones with 3D printers, but we also missed real-time rendering. But so yeah,
Yep.
that was a long-winded answer to your question of initial kind of starting off point. But SciArc was a moment in time. I learned so much. I was uncomfortable. And what I really learned is that I was still really interested in systems and systems thinking. And when I was looking at like internships and things that I could go and do, I realized I didn't really want to do the traditional kind of architectural design as my focus. I took a class in Revit, one class, and I fell in love with it because I realized that Revit is a database first, and it is a 3D modeling program second, and it has rules, right? So if we go back to the start of all this, rules and discipline and structure and the things that I really gravitated towards were down that path in BIM world, and so I moved in that direction, and so was kind of tracking towards BIM management, design technology. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was kind of where I was sort of naturally heading.
Yeah. So when you graduated and you started looking for work, or maybe you had been interning, like were you naturally pulling toward big firm, medium firm, small firm? Where did you kind of fall in that spectrum?
So of all things, I don't think I wasn't thinking about like the size or the name or kind of those other drivers, right? I really wanted to connect with where I wanted to work. And I was an older graduate student, so I think a little bit of extra experience was like, find a place where you're going to be happy. And I don't know that you always think about that when you're kind of starting out in a new career, but I really wanted to be in a place that kind of resonated from like a ethos kind of standpoint. And I wound up at Arup, of all things, so engineering side. I interned at Arup because I had a project management background from doing the contractor side of things. I'd kind of evolved into a project management space, and I had the business degree from undergrad, and I got my foot in the door with Arup in LA. And Russell Hortmeyer, I don't know if you've come across him before, is the sustainability leader at Arup in the Americas right now, and he was also one of my instructors at SciArc, and so he always talked about Arup, and there were so many interesting stories, and he was coming at it from obviously the sustainability lens and kind of material focus and things that were also I was interested in, but I was like, I don't know, all part of the system kind of thing. And so I asked him one day, I said, hey, does Arup do interns or anything like that? And he goes, yeah. He's like, my team is full, but give me your CV and we'll pass it along. And actually, I got into Arup as an intern in project controls, so the financial side of projects, and nothing to do with anything. But when I graduated, they're like, you probably want to use your degree. And I said, yeah, that would be great. I would love that.
They were looking out for you.
Yeah. And so I moved to Arup and joined the BIM management team. But I guess in going back to what was I looking for, it was like total design was the concept for the basis for all the work at Arup, and I really liked that approach because it was considering considering everything, right? And it's a multidisciplinary practice, and including architecture outside of the U.S. in most cases, and all of the different disciplines that exist under one roof. It's pretty rad. And to have that kind of exposure as the first part of my, let's say, new career was really powerful. And I got to learn so much. And I just remember the initial the initial definition on arrival was, engineers think differently than architects. And I thought that was a really, and what showed me that was just the difference in two-dimensional approach versus three-dimensional approach, but how they both kind of do some of, I'm putting my hands together in a kind of infinity symbol. Like there's a lot of movement in both directions between the disciplines. And so I think that was some really incredible exposure for me, and learning about how everyone needed to work together in a BIM environment. And I think BIM, ultimately, building information modeling, sounds kind of boring as an acronym, but we all know it today as something really incredible, where it requires that you collaborate. Like BIM wants you to collaborate, Revit wants you to collaborate, and it also wants you to realize that design has consequence. So you make changes, and things that you decide to do affect other people. And I get very philosophical about them in general, but I think it's a really unique way of working and methodology that is much more than a model. And it's more of a way of interacting with teammates.
Yeah. That design ethos, the total design, didn't that come out of one of Ove Arup's like early writings? From what I recall, it's like an essay or something.
Yeah. God, I have one of the books around here. Yeah. His approach was so unique, I think. And maybe at the time, I don't know, there are also like new iterations of that thinking that just try to, perpetuate that idea of collaboration and coordination. And I think the idea of total design is really interesting because it can be defined in so many different ways, depending on the person or the team or the sector or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, I mean, that's just kind of where my brain goes. Is like design the team.
Yeah.
Design the business.
Yeah.
Design the approach.
Yeah.
Design
the approach. Yes.
Because like the reactiveness of a lot of the way that architecture firms work, which is like new project, throw a ragtag team at it and go make it the best you can in the least amount of time possible, and it's that's a very reactive approach. And I know that there's lots of firms who do really pay attention to the design of those things as well. But like to get back to the ethos of the company and kind of knowing who they are and what their approach is interesting that you kind of saw an attraction to that so early in your career.
Yeah. And I guess going back to that lightning bolt moment, or those kind of reflective, contemplative times that we so rarely get or take for ourselves. I think it's important to remember that not everything has to be immediate. And that's just gone really grand in terms of an idea or a thought, but not everything has to be immediate, and it's important to be considerate and thoughtful in decisions that we make for ourselves, but also for other people. And it doesn't always get to happen that way. It's kind of a luxury when you say it.
Oh, it's a total luxury because most of the time, all there is pressure to do something as fast as possible.
But like, why? Right? Like why? Why do we do that?
A lot of times that's a perceived pressure. It's not an actual pressure, right? It's like, well, of course they want this as fast as possible because faster equals cheaper equals better. And
Yeah.
But rarely does it actually.
Right.
Rarely
Right.
is it. I mean, it may be cheaper, but it is probably not better, right? So,
Exactly. And it's
yeah,
that triangle, right? The triangle of
yeah,
greatness. You can have two out of the three things: what cost,
right,
quality, and speed.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick two.
Yeah.
So where did it go from Arup for you?
So after a few years, I missed design in the architectural sense. So
Like
I
the earliest
y
design of a project,
yeah,
or
yeah,
because you're
and
as an engineer, you are. I'm sure you're at the table sometimes, but that would be
totally.
rare.
Yeah,
But
mostly for problem
then there
solving.
are times. Usually, you're receiving something, and then it's like, okay, now you can start, and then it's like, well,
Yeah. And
you don't. You're not there at the beginning.
those were interesting conversations. I loved working with architects when I was at Arrow because um, I've always considered this role, even now, as a sort of liaison or conduit or um, diplomat in some cases. I think those of us in the BIM management space or in the design technology space, we do kind of act as this connector of many different things and people and ideas. And or at least I hope that's how we that's how I see it. And I think that's pretty cool. But there are those moments where you're like, oh, I'd really like to go solve a different kind of problem. Um, and that was where, yeah, I wasn't looking for anything. But an opportunity presented itself, and the studio design technology leader for the LA office for Woods Bagot was available.
Mm,
It,
mm-hmm.
it sounded like kind of the next step for me and the next move. As a bonus, it was in the Bradbury building. So
Very cool.
wow, what
Mm-hmm.
a great,
Yeah.
incredible space to.
What a lobby to walk into every day.
Oh man. Yeah, really, that return to office approach, that was okay in the Bradbury,
Mm,
post COVID and everything. So, yeah, that was an unexpected, um, like I said, I wasn't looking. It just sort of
mm-hmm.
appeared and I jumped on it because it felt like it felt like the what I gained from working with engineers. I was like, oh, well, maybe I can let me go back to my architecture friends and see if I can affect change over here too, and yeah, have cool conversations and yeah.
Hey everyone, let's take a quick break from the conversation to pay some bills around here. This episode of Troxel is brought to you by Troxel Plus members. That's right, my incredible paid supporter members are making this episode possible. Their direct support ensures that I can continue exploring the intersection of architecture, technology, and the future of design with the leading voices in our industry directly to you. So let's talk about why you might consider financially supporting the podcast too. By becoming a Troxel Plus supporter, you're not just helping sustain these conversations, you're also gaining exclusive benefits like ad-free episodes of the show and my Leadership Edge email newsletter, where I analyze episodes and deliver the insights and key takeaways right into your inbox. Your small contribution makes a huge impact. And if you've been enjoying Troxel and want to be part of the community that keeps it thriving, please consider joining today. Head on over to trxl.co and click the subscribe button either in the upper right-hand corner or at the bottom of the page, or you can visit the link that I've put into the show notes. Once again, my sincerest thanks to the Troxel Plus members who have made this episode of the podcast possible, even though they aren't even hearing this ad because theirs are ad-free. Now, let's get back to the conversation. I'm curious when okay, so I want to step back a minute, which is when you're in a project team at Arup back then, right? Which I'm sure is different than today, and the kind of information, the kind of data that you're getting maybe from an architect today would be very different than what you were back then. Were you clued into what firms were what we would, say ahead of the curve when it came to kind of digital delivery, or at least this collaboration and the depth that BIM can offer if you're doing it right?
If you're doing it right. Yeah. For sure. I think it was always interesting to get to know the architects, and also because they typically, a lot of the architecture firms wouldn't have a BIM manager or, kind of someone dedicated to doing
that wasn't a role.
Right.
They maybe had a CAD manager. They definitely had an IT department, but
Yeah, but
a lot of times a BIM manager was still a consultant back then, right?
right.
Because
Yeah.
they didn't need them full time, or at least they didn't think they did.
Right. They didn't think they did. I would dare I argue that everyone needs everyone needs at least one, but it shouldn't be the only person fixing things.
Right.
But that's another part of this game. Yeah, I think my my approach with anyone I work with is I always want to understand where the other person is coming from, and also just try to facilitate a conversation around the things that we don't know either, So it's great to talk through how we're going to do the things, and how we're going to approach a problem, and here's the software we're going to use, and here are the plugins and all of that. But also, like, in the case that we've done this thing, whatever the thing is, we've done it 100 times. We keep doing it the same way because that's the way it's always worked. So we'll just keep going. I do always want to ask the question of, but like, what else? Or what other considerations are there? What new things are out there? And geez, Louise, these days, if you've got, if you talk to someone for a few hours, there's a change has happened. Something new has arisen and showed itself. But it's just so hard to keep up with all the new things that you also want to commit to things that work. And so I think it's important to, again, have those conversations of like, well, is there another way? Or before we start, could we talk this out? Or kind of, where do we want to go? Or what's the expectation? Just asking those questions can be
open-endedly.
Yeah. And without fear. Because sometimes asking questions gives the impression that you don't know something. And well, sorry, it doesn't give the impression. It means that you might not know, but you also want to help clue in everyone in the room. And so asking a question doesn't mean something bad, right? I'm trying to avoid using the word I'm trying to avoid using the word stupid. I just hate when I get that. Sorry to ask a stupid question. Like, no questions are stupid. And I really hope that someday we'll stop apologizing for asking questions. But yeah, I think it's important to just yes, accept things as we can probably all do them 90% of the time, but also ask those questions around. But what if we tried this? Or, what if we asked for an extra day? Or, what can we do a little differently?
Yeah. So now you're at Woods Bagot.
Yes.
Right? And I think you've been there ever since.
Yes. Yeah, I have done. So I joined Woods Bagot in October of 2022. So just past my 3-year mark. I joined in Los Angeles, and then of course a month after I joined is when the world changed, and we had ChatGPT drop into our lives.
Yeah,
and it's never been the same.
This was only a couple of years after the world changed in a completely
different way. Yes,
yeah,
with just nonstop life-changing events in humanity currently.
Right.
Yeah. So that was really fun timing, I think.
Did it feel like a major change when that happened? Like you're saying, a month later?
Yes, and so it's kind of a blurry couple of months in that way. We didn't immediately dive into it. It was more, and I think a lot of organizations are still kind of in that individual into collective movement of how we're adopting AI. But at the time, it was kind of just a bunch of us going, "Oh, have you tried this thing? It's crazy." You know, you just ask it a question, it just goes on, and like it answers it really quickly, and seems to know a lot. And it's hard to even actually think back to what is it 3.5
Yeah.
as that kind of initial starting point. But yeah, I just remember a lot of people going, oh, and like, have you tried Dolly? And have you tried,
Yeah, I was gonna say like the image gen stuff was also kind of right
yeah.
around the same time where it was like, okay, that's another thing you have to contend with or
Hmm.
learn what the potential of is
Yeah.
and at least start playing with it.
Start playing with it. Man, how
Yeah.
important is play? Um, that's a whole other, like, that's my favorite conversation. It's like, how can we have some fun at work?
Mm,
Yeah, there were just so many things happening all at once. And we were also, the LA studio um, was also still coming out of kind of a reforming period post COVID, and had a lot of work with the San Francisco studio, and so Studio California, and yeah, there was a really cool time of just growth and excitement and enthusiasm. And we were working on LAX, the midfield satellite concourse south, which is just finished or is close to finishing. Now that I'm in another country, it's hard to keep up.
I don't miss that airport. Yeah, I don't miss that airport.
Everyone loves LAX. Come on.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it was just a kind of blurry time. I remember maybe like in January 2023, right in the new year, just kind of going, hey, you know what? We should probably all just start having a chat about
Mm, mm-hmm.
um, what's happening. Like, what are you seeing out there? What are you finding interesting? And like, where do you want to explore? Um, because I think, and even still today, there are there's healthy levels of skepticism and fear, but then it's also this kind of ubiquitous technology now, and in a lot of ways, you know, individuals have been sort of changed by the interactions that have occurred over the last few years, and and there's still a lot of people who haven't even started yet.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm from that point of view. I'm curious what was if I was to take the temperature of Woods Baggett back then. What would
mhm.
you say the temperature of like, or at least the curiosity in these tools was? Because I've always thought of Woods Baggett as being a technology forward company, like
Yeah,
way back to Andrew Human, Brian Ringley, Shane Berger days of early Autodesk University talks about
yeah,
interoperability and building Grasshopper tools, and you guys had the whole like what is it, the Wombat tool
yeah,
set? Like
Wombat.
there's this whole thing, and that was early, design technology. It was just that was like on my radar, and then I can assume then that just marched on forward, and like you said, there's this whole spectrum of kind of curiosity
Hmm.
and implementation and adoption of across the board in the profession of architecture. I've
Yeah,
always seen Woods Baggett as being kind of early to that game, and so I'm curious what the temperature was like when it came to AI.
yeah. So if we go back to that ethos kind of approach to how where we find ourselves, one of the sort of tenets of what's Baggett is like it's focused on rigorous curiosity, and I love that. And so uh, there there is sort of in maybe in each of us as individuals, but then sort of as a foundation as for the firm is that kind of desire to want to explore, um, and to try new things. We I think we have an incredible ability to um, perpetuate um, more of the things that we want to see in the world in terms of like design technology. Um, and then there's that kind of added piece of wanting to push outside, and I hate to use the word innovate, but
Explore, yeah. I mean, but
explore.
yeah, you
Yeah,
are,
you like
yeah,
again, it's that, we can keep doing what we've been doing, and there's no shortage of cute Australian animals that we can name our tools after, because that's what we do. And it's shout out to Wombat and Quokka.
And just to be clear, like Woods Bagot is an Australian-based firm, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yes.
Sorry, we're founded
Yeah.
in Adelaide, 156 years ago. So yeah,
been around a while.
incredible history. Yeah, and yeah, so I think there's always part of our approach from the design technology side is asking those questions of like, where can we go from here? And I remember myself. So as the studio design technology leader, there's one of me in every studio, and what an incredible team of humans, because there's vast experience. Those who've been with the firm for 20 plus years, and then those like me who've only been a few years, and we all come to the table with some really incredible insight into what's happened, what's happening, and what could happen. I think, yeah, those are always good conversations. But that curiosity piece is, I think, still evolving. One of the things that is really critical about this time in the world right now, in terms of like business holistically, is that risk. Right, the risk is a heavy driver, and the thing that is, ultimately causing people to take more time. I say people, but I mean organizations, causing organizations to take more time to make thoughtful decisions in this space, because there are the potential ramifications that come out of either not the misuse, but the not fully figured out approaches to using new technology.
Yeah, an example of that, I mean, it's shared by a guest just recently on the podcast, and that was that, through the pandemic, there was a lot of move to online collaboration tools, and now it's been 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and it's like, well, now we don't pin up anymore, and so then it's just a question of, well, of course, like things have changed, right? People are working remote a lot more, and they're not in the space where that used to happen. Of course, it was incredibly valuable to those who were there in its time, and then it's just a question. It's like, does this matter? What were the pros? What were the cons? What are the pros and the cons of the new way that we're doing it?
Yeah.
And of course, there's preference, and there's all these other things that come into it, but it's interesting just to kind of say, oh, well, like, let's just step back and maybe brainstorm where this could lead us, and then have a conversation about that, because there's always going to be unintended consequences of
absolutely
implementing a tool, a technology, a new way of, a workflow, a process, whatever you want to call it. And you can't always foresee all those, but it is interesting to actually pay attention to the things that have been changing and say, okay, what are our values? What matters? Why does it matter? Right. And then move forward with that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I think, so our CEO has taken the approach of freedom within boundaries, and doing air quotes there, that freedom within boundaries, I think is just maybe a good approach for life. Because it's good to have some guardrails in place. It's good to have some rules by which we conduct ourselves. And so
those two things, freedom and boundaries, are widely open to interpretation as well.
Yes. Also, depending on the region that you live in. Yeah, there's all kinds of, I just finished an audiobook this morning, actually, when I went for my coffee. That I'd heard about on another, like listening to another podcast, and someone mentioned it, and I was like, that sounds interesting. And it is The Ancient Art of Thinking for Yourself, by Robin Reams. And it was a really interesting book. So I listened to the audiobook because I like to have one of every medium kind of going at a time. So an audiobook, an ebook, and a regular book. they're not quickly read or finished in any way, shape, or form. I just like to have the different options depending on what mode of transit I'm taking. Um, and yeah, the book itself is around rhetoric, the kind of the art of speaking and persuasion and language. And I think we're in a really pivotal time where language and the the capability and like fortitude behind communication is really important. It's really and I say that considering the work that we are pursuing, and I mean the work that we as humans are pursuing when it comes to working with AI, right? Large language models are fundamentally like built on the concept of language, and how we work with GPTs is centered around how we communicate, right? It's not a keyword search. It's not a demand that gets you great results. It's the art of prompting, the art of rhetoric, the art of conversation that really determines where we go with these different tools. And so yeah, there's a really interesting moment happening right now around how we use language to not just communicate, but to kind of guide where we want to see results.
And it's an evolution, right? Because I think everybody was used to the voice assistants and learning how to
deal with
talk
that.
to those to get them to get them to do what you wanted, and you had to kind of speak the Google language or the Alexa language or the Siri language or whatever. And just looking around, see if
I know,
any
right? Who's
devices
listening?
just lit up. But they're all listening.
Yeah.
But we had to do that, and now we're doing that again.
Yeah.
With these kinds of tools, and at the same time, these tools are learning back. It's like it is kind of a feedback loop that's happening here, and the early adopters really have to bend to the machine, and the further things evolve, the easier it gets for mortals, normal people, to just say what they want to say, and the thing does the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And that things are moving very fast.
So fast.
And at the same time, well, yeah, because like remember when everybody was talking about prompt engineering, right? And now it's much less of a subject. Of course, it is still a thing, but it's kind of evolved into context engineering and guidance, a lot more guidance than just Q&A kind of stuff.
But isn't it interesting, like context engineering, right? Like I think context is such a beautiful thing because everyone needs it. It's not just our favorite GPTs, right? Everyone needs context.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Oh my gosh. You're speaking my language, because I can't even tell you how many times where it's funny because people will be like, I hate AI this or that because it lies to me, or it doesn't answer my question or whatever. And it's like, well, and then I hear that same person speaking, and I'm like, there's not any context to even just normal conversation. And it's like, so do this to that. And I'm like, well, what's this and what's that? Right? Provide more, because I don't know what's inside your head of what you're referencing, because it's not out here for me to look at.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. We don't have the brain reading capability yet, right? The mind reading. We don't have that fancy helmet that has sometimes come up in sci-fi stories, right? You know, it's not. And I think that's really interesting because it's such a human thing to maybe sometimes start with the assumption of, well, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like,
you know what was really good training for me was my wife, because I've always been a visual. Like I will like to just draw it out. I'm just going to draw you a picture because that's how I want to see it.
Yeah.
And she never wanted to see a picture. Just tell me.
Just tell me.
She would say no. She would say no. Just tell me. And that would force me to paint that picture with words.
Find the words, yeah.
And that actually was fantastic
amazing.
Training. I guess I need to thank her publicly for that. But it was one of those, because I probably haven't, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that was That was super useful
Yeah.
because it forces you to go about it in that way. And now with the world that is very language based for these kinds of interfaces,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is actually no difference now between typing it on a keyboard and
Yeah.
just saying it to the thing.
Totally.
I mean,
Totally.
you're probably not even going to have the typos if you just say it to the thing.
Well,
Right. So,
and you know what's so interesting about that is it is also like the the text to image piece, right? If we just consider that, if you know what it is you're trying to say, but you can't offer a way of visualizing it to show it as an example, and we're starting to see this with some of our clients, for example, or just like our collaborators, you know, people in the world that we're working with, like if you can use the language in a way that gets you a visual representation of the thing that you're trying to talk about, amazing. And then you share
mhm.
that with your collaborative partner and you say, this is what I meant. Here are the words that I used in order to get to this visual
Oh,
representation.
yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
this. And they go, oh, okay. And then, you know, in the kind of the mid-journey-esque, you know, describe, you know, forward slash describe. And you can start to um, communicate in totally different, or not different, but like just new ways or like
Yeah.
expanded ways of yeah, getting that context and being able to really run with it. Like, wow, what a time to be alive.
I think it's absolutely incredible when I'm in the moment and I cannot think of the right way to say something or the best way to say
Right.
something. And I just write it down anyway and just be like, let's see what
Something like
happens. And I
this, yeah.
hit enter and it's like, holy crap, it actually worked. I didn't have to be perfect with my presentation of the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty
It's
crazy.
freeing. It's just freeing. And I think, you know, going back to what I was saying earlier, just asking questions. Wow, how nice does it feel to ask a GPT? I mean, to say this, it's going to sound crazy, but like, isn't it nice to be able to ask a GPT a question and then get an answer that is, you know, what you wanted or not, but also just not have that perceived judgment or bias
Yeah.
or the
Right.
thing that can come from
That
communicating
we
with
know of.
others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably judging
We're
us too.
actually being scored in the
Yeah.
background. Yeah.
On the back end, it's just telling all of the other GPT
Yeah.
friends.
It's building a
Um,
profile. Yeah.
but it's like it's such a freeing moment. And this is not me saying, you know, only talk to the GPTs over here.
Yeah.
That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying like
Right.
we can kind of practice and become more comfortable with how we communicate
Mm.
if we spend more time, you know, kind of exercising
In
those
a
muscles.
judgment-free zone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Right.
and maybe that, you know, the long-term effect of that, the evolution of that is that we become better communicators. I'm an
Mm.
idealist in this space where I'm like, use the tools to evolve in a greater, you know, direction. Um, but yeah, it's such a cool time to experiment and explore with all of these different tools and to yeah, to kind of face the fear in some cases of yeah, just not having the right answer, not knowing the right question, not knowing the words to put together, doing the thing that you want to say, but then ultimately coming out of it going, oh yeah,
Well,
thanks for getting me.
it reminds me of like the early days of programming where it was like you didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so you would try something and then it wouldn't work. And then you'd have to go back in and tweak something and
Yes.
then run it again and see if it works. That kind
And
of
it was
tinkering,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, it was. And I find that to be like that, where it's
Mhm.
like these early days of tinkering and just
Yes.
seeing what happens. It seems
Iteration.
very technology experimental to
Yeah.
me in
Yeah.
that way, but the tools are way more powerful now, right?
And
It's like,
so fast. It's just changing so
right,
quickly.
right. The speed is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, oh wow. Yeah. I mentioned, yeah, play earlier and just like
Hmm.
having a bit of fun. Again, within boundaries when you're at work, but um what a great opportunity that we have to kind of try new things and like before it was called vibe coding. You know, it was really interesting to just go, I'm kind of curious about learning Python. I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer in any way, but I really love learning. And so I wanted to try and kind of take a course and then supplement it with, you
Mm.
know, hey, favorite GPT, how do I'd like a puzzle. Um, you know, quiz me on this, or like, how would I write this, or that kind of approach. And it's so fun. It's just so fun to come up with an idea and say, just where would this go? What could this be? And I started, I've been taking a knitting class, for like a beginner's knitting class, for the last 4 weeks. Today's the fourth and final class. And I just thought, I was like, okay, patterns, stitching, that's a very obvious data um, capability here. So uh, I was having a chat with both Claude and ChatGPT, and I was talking about, I was like, well, there's got to be something in knitting, and where there's a capability here to look at, different patterns and different stitches and stuff like that. And I just kind of did like data knitting or something like that, or just an
You're like, I didn't know
initial.
the words, but
Exactly, yeah. It was like
you just tried it.
I did start with a Google search, and I found this really cool piece of work by someone at MIT a few years ago, where she'd taken like a machine from the 1980s and configured it with Python and JavaScript, uh, to actually like initiate knitting. It was like a robot as well, and so like initiate knitting patterns based off of a binary of white and black, and then the kind of
Mm.
grayscale in between it. And then, yeah, it was really cool. And then like she explored different patterns, and then came up with an app that. So she was way ahead of me, but but I was like, oh, that's a really cool concept. And so kind of took that and ran with it with Claude and ChatGPT, and came up with a quick script to like just start with like a randomized pattern and like so many rows. And I was like, maybe I'll do a scarf. Because I was like, I don't know how to do color stuff yet, but I'll just try some of this. But then I was thinking, oh, and then what kind of data sets would I like to use to interpret in different ways? And yeah, just wow. Like it started with a simple idea. I didn't know what that could turn into, and then fed it into my GPT friends, and got some interesting results. And now I'm like, oh, but what if, X, Y, Z? And you kind of go
Yeah.
down these different um, really fun rabbit holes. Yeah.
Let's take a short break from the conversation to tell you about something that I think is pretty great and you might be interested in it. And that is my exclusive newsletter available only to paid members of Troxel Plus that I call Leadership Edge. If you're looking to stay ahead of the curve in architecture and technology, Leadership Edge delivers insights that you won't find anywhere else. Why? Well, because they are my deep dives into the podcast conversations, just like the one that you're listening to in this episode, to give you an edge on the industry. Each edition of the newsletter provides key insights for forward-thinking leaders seeking innovation in AEC who are short on time, offering the context of each conversation without the need to listen to the full episode. I've actually designed them, though, to keep you updated, spark your interest, and encourage you to tune into the full episodes if those ideas resonate. And the best part is that they are packed with actionable takeaways to help you navigate the future of practice. By becoming a paid supporter, you get Leadership Edge delivered right to your inbox, and it's a direct way to support my podcast while getting exclusive, valuable content to sharpen your leadership mindset. You can join today at trxl.co and start receiving my Leadership Edge newsletters. Just click the subscribe button either in the upper right-hand corner or at the bottom of the page, or you can visit the link that I put in the show notes. Thanks. Now back to the conversation. Interesting. I mean, it's one of those things where it makes me think, like, what are the implications of the democratization of everything?
Mm.
technology wise to
Yep.
anybody.
Yep.
And where does that leave professionals,
Mm.
right? This is the
And
big
specialists.
giant
Yeah. This is,
question mark, right? It's really interesting. And at the same time, like you are a professional in a profession that requires stamps and insurance and contracts and all these things. And these tools are, I mean, you have the exact same access to the tools you're talking about as everybody else,
yep.
right?
And where do you
And I think what's
differentiate?
interesting though is, well, yeah, how do you differentiate or how do you evolve? How do you change? I think that's kind of the danger, right? I'm not saying anything new here, which is we just absolutely cannot continue to do things the same way we've always done them
Yeah.
because of those kinds of, I don't know, let's call them threats for the sake of the conversation, but
Yeah.
opportunities, right? Like
Yeah.
there's all kinds of,
Yes. Where's the SWOT analysis for this?
but how do you
Yeah.
actually get out of the lane that you're in
Mm.
to do that analysis? And then again in a few months, and
And
then
then take
again because
time.
things have
Yes,
changed in a
exactly.
few months.
Exactly.
And how do you, because you kind of need to have somebody, at least somebody, if not more than one person, right? Just continually saying, well, here's some opportunities. What
Yeah.
if we apply this? And just really incubating,
Yeah.
or I don't know, there's a lot of words you could use to describe that
Yeah.
process, but you basically you're being curious
Yeah.
about what the future of whatever you do could potentially be and how it could be very different than what it is right now.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's it becomes kind of overwhelming almost
Mm.
when you think about it from like
Paralyzing. Yeah.
yeah I guess I'll make the differentiation between like individual and then organization again
Mm.
because I think we all have a lot of freedom within our own individual capability to experiment um, in the ways that we want to, right? In our kind of own personal sense. So we have these personal relationships with these tools, and then we have how our organizations are starting to kind of figure out how we want to work with things. And again, it's that those risk factors that come into play where um, it can slow down, you know, in, maybe an already slow process. I was reading an article yesterday about it was kind of marketing focused, but it was essentially saying that the iteration approach just has to be how everyone operates, and so it's developing. It wasn't talking about agile, but if we consider the kind of agile methodology as the way that we all move forward in our work, it's about being really adaptable. And I don't know how that works with what we've always done, in I'm going to say in AEC, but I feel like every discipline, every industry is experiencing this in some way because everything is moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And the response required is just it's too much, right? It's too much to be able to react to in organization type ways. And I don't know what the answer is for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. You're a large organization and you have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of offices and studios, and so I'm curious the attitude, and maybe hypothetically, it's not even Woods Bagot, right? It's just a
Yeah.
larger architectural organization who obviously sees these tools on the horizon,
Mm-hmm.
assuming many people are using them. But the attitude towards giving those kinds of tools to anybody in the firm to use, because the to me, there's going to be people who are obviously wanting to leverage these tools, and there
Yeah.
are definitely organizations who are like, no, it's too risky. We
Right.
don't know what's going on with, like, okay, so yes, there is that side of it. And then there's also the, okay, well, I'm going to go somewhere that is going to let me to do that because that's the future of my career.
Yeah.
And so there's
Yeah.
this is an issue for sure. And I think it's way beyond architecture, right? This is
Absolutely.
almost any kind of organization. And so
Everything.
I'm just curious, like, what is the attitude towards accessibility to tools like these in these large organizations. I don't have to deal with that. I'm an organization of one.
Well done.
But there's end user license
Yep.
agreements, there's
Oh yeah.
subscriptions, there's all of, there's bloat when it comes
So much
to
to
how do you
read.
even manage logins and
Yep.
access and what the IP is and is it local, is it in like where
Yeah.
is it, all that kind of stuff. I mean, these are what organizations have to deal with, but they also have to deal with them quickly
Yes.
so that like you can make the decision and say no and here's why, or yes and here's why, because we see a different future or we see it helping us in this way.
Yeah. So I think I think I can only answer this hypothetically because we're all in this kind of nebulous state, unless you are
Sure.
an organization of one,
Yeah.
where there are just so many variables and so many things to consider, and it's sort of the response approach is changing, you know, maybe not daily, but it's everyone's learning very, very quickly, and we're trying, you know, we're trying and we're testing and we're considering. And I think it's incumbent upon everyone to upskill and develop their own literacy in this space.
Does that happen on your own time, or does that happen on company time, or a little bit of both?
That's a great question. In my personal feeling is that it's a bit of both, because I think there's a responsibility on individuals to want to to want to upskill and to, I think continuous learning is sort of a requirement as a human being. If we had to sign a contract with life, what would it entail? And I think it would be that we have to keep educating ourselves. But it's a personal feeling. And then I do think there's a responsibility on organizations to, require some level of continuous education and continuous development in ways that are meaningful to the business. And I think that making that a priority, in addition to compliance training, which everyone has to do, I think these are really important parts of culture, organizational culture. And so, and then also maybe the thing that often gets forgotten or overlooked is incentivizing that and rewarding people for doing the work and making it part of the path that we travel, right? So making it part of the career goals and the KPIs, and just making
Curiosity as KPI.
Yeah, I mean,
I like it.
Dare I say
There's
it?
a title for the episode.
I think yeah, because like then everyone gets better, everyone keeps evolving, and it's not about keeping up necessarily, but it's about trying new things, and like life is short.
Well, I think what's super interesting about organizations is that you have this huge range of experience. Huge.
Yeah.
And who gets to say where the ideas come from when you have an organization that big? Or at least I don't think you should try to keep it in a particular place, right? And so by encouraging that curiosity across the board, I mean, you could get an incredible idea from someplace you never expected it, because that person was curious about seeing, where the rabbit hole went.
Totally. And also just feeling safe to do so. I think there was a lot of conversation during COVID and kind of since then about, psychological safety at work. That's real. Like it's wildly important. And I think all industries would do better to just pay attention to what people need to speak up and feel safe and feel heard. And I think it's about those asking questions, right? And being able to fail and then fail better, right? Make mistakes, tinker, play, and kind of make it okay to explore And I think that's everywhere, you know.
Hmm.
But again, freedom within boundaries.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, just making sure that it's beneficial and safe for the business as well.
Well, I want to segue to your recent talk at the Melbourne
Oh yeah,
Build Expo.
yeah,
And I mean, the title was The Future of Architecture in an AI Driven World.
yes.
So you got the crystal
Bold.
ball out, it sounds like. Please tell us what it says.
So this was a really fun conversation. And the Melbourne Build Expo is really interesting because it was my first time going, but they do
We
occur.
I want to pause for a second. We never actually talked about your transition
Oh,
across. Do we even call this a pond? Like what? It's
yeah,
an
it's like
ocean.
it's the yeah, because it's not the pond, like the Atlantic is
No,
the
the pond
pond.
is
Yeah, the
yeah, the
Pacific is more
Atlantic
of
is the pond.
a
Yeah.
lake, I guess.
Right. Okay. If you say so.
The large lake.
It's a long flight. That was a
Yeah,
long flight.
yeah, 16 and a half hours from LA. Yeah, it was
Well,
good.
so just talk about your career transition real quick there to kind of lead up to this Melbourne
Yeah, fair.
Build Expo.
So I had been with Woods for about 4 months, I think, at the time when, like I said, there's as the studio design technology leader, there's one of me in every studio, and so the me in Melbourne was moving into a global role, and actually I'd seen the post on LinkedIn prior to knowing that. And so I was like, hey, hang on a second. And so I went to my colleague and I was like, hey man, you're not leaving, are you? He goes, no, no, no. No, I'm just moving into a global role. I said, oh, okay. Oh, I'm interested. And I put my hand out, and it wasn't out of nowhere. So for additional context, in 2019, my husband, then boyfriend that turned into fiance in 2019, we were visiting some friends here in Melbourne. So my husband's best friend and her wife live here, and we came to visit. All of us at the time, all four of us were working at Arab, and so we did a week of work in the office, and then we did 2 weeks on holiday, and did the Great Ocean Road and went to Kangaroo Island, and then had a fantastic time. And before all of that, we got engaged. So my husband proposed here in Melbourne in St Kilda. We went to go see some penguins, and and so we had a connection kind of to the city, you know, through that experience back in 2019. And actually at the time, this was yeah, September 2019. At the time, we were thinking, oh, you know, Melbourne could be cool. That'd be a good like maybe next step, you know, just see what happens. And then the world shut down. And and so we just sort of like tabled that idea
Hmm.
for the time, and you know, life moved on, and we just didn't think about it. And then yeah, when the posting popped up, and I spoke to my colleague over here, and I was just like, well, yeah, I'm interested. um, and so yeah, interviewed for it, and really enjoyed learning about the Melbourne studio because uh, all the studios are a little bit different. They all have their own kind of
Sure.
personalities, and Melbourne's
Hmm.
very established. We're about 150 or so, 150 plus people. So it's going to be a different experience altogether, and a really fun challenge. And so yeah, got it. And and moved over. Yeah, about a year
No big
after being with
deal.
the
No
firm.
big
Yeah.
deal moving across the ocean.
But that's kind of the best part of being, you know, being part of a system that is global, right?
Mm.
You
Makes it
get
a
to
little
work
easier
with
for sure.
incredible humans, you know, and in every different region, and have conversations, and yeah, just that was my favorite thing about Arab. It's my favorite thing about Woods. I think we're really lucky when we kind of stretch out and talk to people in other places, yeah, see what's going on. So
Nice.
that's how I got here.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so Melbourne Build on the back of that. Really, really fun conference, really interesting space. And they do, I think they've got one kind of in every big city in Australia. I'm not sure if it ventures out, but um, generally driven from the construction side, and lots of really interesting, um, yeah, I love seeing new tech in construction as well. And so not just the digital piece, but also looking at there were some cool robots on the floor. And yeah, the conversation was, yeah, driven by that topic of the future of architecture in an AI-driven world. No small task to talk about that. Um,
So are you throwing this out and saying, okay, we're going to assume that the world is driven by AI, or are you saying that it's like, oh, this is something we need to talk about right now because that's what I'm seeing?
so, so I think the conversation and how it went, like I think it was about bringing everyone into the space and saying, hey, everyone, this is a thing that we all need to care about because
Mm-hmm.
um, AI and this kind of the way that we know generative AI and how we're adapting machine learning into our processes and all of these things, like um, this isn't going away, and it's not something that we can just ignore, or it's not a trend or a fad. I think there's, there's a lot of conversation around like the bubble and like the hype and all of that. I mean, it's kind of like the internet or mobile phones or electricity. It's like it's such a big movement that like we're not gonna I don't think it's going away. So it's really about how do we um again learn, develop our literacy, our fluency, educate ourselves. How do we start to move in the direction of this is where technology is guiding us? How do we embrace it, and how do we be the change that we want to see within it? Because I think uh, that's a thing that also can get overlooked is thinking that technology is just thrown at us, or put
Well,
upon
just a
us.
second ago, you said the way technology is guiding us,
Ah,
and
fair.
and I think and so I just want to point that out
Yeah.
because I think there is this sense which is like it's coming at me. I need to navigate this as we go
Hmm.
forward, and I don't have the agency
Yes.
in this.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
so it's interesting because that just came out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that,
Yeah. No, it's totally true.
and at the same time, on some level, it kind of is because I mean, billions and billions of dollars are going into this to try to make sure it happens, right?
Yes. Yeah.
In these ways, and like that's a bubble that you're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
potential bubble, right? It's like at some point the dollars stop
Yeah.
or scale way back, or a reckoning has to happen
I think the
to
reckoning is, yeah.
find other ways for that to make sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, it costs a lot. It costs a lot, especially in these early days, to build, to pioneer a
Hmm.
lot of this stuff and get it in the hands of as many people as possible
Yeah.
for, to build the biggest companies they possibly can as fast as possible.
Yeah. And yeah, and how many people, right? Because there is that, and some of the conversation was around the inequities found in how accessible, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
the tech is, or how accessible it should be, because um, there was a thing in the New York Times a few months ago about the kind of clear and obvious divide between data center locations in the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere, which
Mm.
is, information I care about now much more that I'm in the southern hemisphere, and you can just sort of see the ethnographic, the demographic approach to um, where things exist, right? And it's always, it's kind of an obvious trajectory of, you know, the haves and the have-nots as per usual, but it shouldn't be that way, right? It should be, and this is where I'm saying that everyone should kind of take that responsibility and accountability for responding to the systems in ways that are not, let's say, again, guided by the technology itself. It's about taking agency and really, it starts as simply as if a GPT gets something wrong and you tell it, right? It's about informing the models and trying to slowly eliminate, or you can't eliminate it really, but you try to decrease the amount of bias in a thing, right?
Yeah.
Over time. And so there's the approach that we can take, and maybe this comes down to that kind of the language piece, that in the book I just finished was talking about how we approach the topic of climate change, right? And I think it'll have a similar parallel to this space. And the way we use language in talking about climate change is that it's the war on climate change, or the thing that we have to fix about climate change, and it's treating it as an other, whereas in using that kind of language, we relinquish the responsibility that we have to being the ones that caused it in the first place.
This is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You turn the thing,
Yep.
the concept, the argument,
Yep.
the idea,
Yep.
the technology into an enemy so that you
Right.
can say, that's not me. Like that is, I think,
Yes.
just kind of an evolutionary, like that's a survival mechanism
Right.
almost when it comes to like what's happening in your lizard brain, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And we do it with everything. It's, I mean, those of us in the BIM and design technology space, how many times have we heard I don't know what you do, but it's magic, okay. And that's a
It's
form.
a black box.
Yeah, that's a
It's another
form.
thing.
That's a form of othering, and it creates distance between, A and B, right? And it means that we get further away from the thing that we want to impact or change or collaborate with, or what have you. And it's just, it's little kind of conscious moments of recognizing that and being able to take ownership of whatever the next steps need to be. And
yeah, it's like a lack of responsibility, right? It's by saying this is this other thing, it's got its own responsibilities, and it's the villain or whatever it is. It's negative. It's different. I don't have any responsibility in that, and that is super interesting. Just as like a human psychology that happens.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is a lot of times it doesn't. I don't think it applies to everything, but it's like by pointing at it over there, you're signaling that you don't have any of it in here.
Yes. Yeah.
And you probably do. Like everybody's got this.
Definitely. I think we're all connected, right?
Yeah.
We're all connected. It's this incredible ecosystem. Everything is connected.
A very elaborate masking technology that we have, right? It's like, it's over there. It's not me.
Yeah.
Talk about what came out of this conversation at the expo, because that to me, like you said, you brought everyone together in the space to kind of have this conversation. And I love that you kind of framed it that way. I'm hoping that it was more of a conversation than just a presentation of here's the thing. It's not, and here's the information. Go do with it as you will. But that to me, like that's kind of one of the biggest missed opportunities of conferences and going to seminars, is that often it's one direction. And sometimes there's a Q&A at the end, but really I think the format needs to get flipped and say 5-minute presentation, 50 minutes of discussion would be way more useful. So what was the conversation that came out of this?
So what an incredible group of panelists I had with me. I raised my hand to moderate. And I'm glad I did so, because I always like to learn from other people. And so especially because I'm not an expert in this space. My exploration in AI has been as a supplement to my quote unquote day job. Um, and it's really just been about a sort of personal passion to keep it human, um, to make it accessible and to keep the conversation around how we can make change, not how it will change us. Even though I know that that's part of that kind of hopefully symbiotic relationship. But so the six of us, one, two, three, four, five, yes, six. um, we got together and we did the thing where we met on the day, but we did have a conversation prior to, and everyone sent their interests in an email chain. Spoiler alert, this is how it works with conferences. um, but it was really interesting. So a lot of um, interwoven threads of interest and curiosities there around like systems thinking and equity and sustainability. It's a huge one. We're all kind of on that hype versus reality train. Um, and, we're talking about culture and collaboration and how there's an evolution that we need to sort of acknowledge in this space. And again, this could have been industry agnostic.
Yeah.
It just happened to be that we were talking about, and we were a group of people involved in architecture, engineering, and construction. And within architecture, we also had a landscape architect, which also drives a lot of the kind of the sustainability conversation and what does it mean for the actual environment in which the tech needs to exist. So we didn't present anything mercilessly, and I wanted to guide the conversation with questions and just see how everyone sort of could speak to their own experience, but then also challenge each other, or at least I tried to challenge them. But that in guiding the conversation was just kind of fluid and kind of organic, like seemingly what we're doing here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Seemingly. This has all been scripted.
Yes,
we're both reading off
obviously.
teleprompters right now. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we all could come to a sort of consensus of, it's not about the tool, right? It's not about the like what thing are you choosing to use. It's about how is it changing how you work, and how are you collaborating or improving your workflows as a result. And so I think that's where a lot of the hangups and failed pilots and things can fall apart, is when the focus is just on the tool. Like, oh, we bought this thing. It's like, great. It's really not what we need. And so I think it was, it was a good conversation around like process over product, and what are sort of cultural shifts need to consider when it comes to, data, right? What's interesting about this shift right now is that maybe design tech as it stands as an entity within AEC has always been a little bit in the background, but also at the foreground for innovation and kind of experimentation. But it's always kind of like doing its own thing. But I think where we're heading, or where we have been heading, is that everyone sort of needs to fall in love with data and understand that there's ways to work with it regardless of what discipline you are or what role you have, and that it can be impactful. When there's a talk by Andrew Ng, NG is the surname, from deep learning, and he he gives it was a TED talk from a couple of years ago, and he mentions how generative AI and machine learning and all of these things can be for everyone, right? It doesn't require huge expenditures or lots of data sets or big data sets or anything like that. You can really start with what you have. And I think he gave an example of a like a small town pizza business, right? So independent operator needs to better understand what kind of pizza to sell at what times during the day and how much to make and all of that. It's like you could really just look at your sales and receipts and all of those things and create an algorithm that works for optimizing when and which pizzas you make. And then considering like a textile manufacturer and looking at if we were introducing machine learning and sort of photo recognition of stains or tears in things and just training a system to recognize stains and tears. And then using that as a QA kind of approach to the final product that's being shipped out, recognizing where the data matters. And you think about that, and you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that's kind of cool. I bring this up because I think it's an interesting shift to how we think about data and how it impacts our lives, and from not even considering the social media impact over the last 20 years, but just the things that we see and the things that we interact with, and how we can acknowledge and kind of impress change in our work based on the existing data that we have. I don't know. There's just a lot to.
There's a lot of gold in there, right?
Yeah.
But you have to think about, well, I don't know, you have to apply your curiosity to what could we do with it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody shared anything in that forum that you were like, oh, I never thought of that, or just something that sounded super interesting.
I guess part of it is that everyone is asking the question, what does this all mean for my job? And some of the takeaways were like, the thing that we've all kind of said is that it's not this isn't a replacement for humans. It's meant to be a supplement. And so approaching the tech in this way, or embracing it in this way, is more about leveraging the capability versus like succumbing to it, or just letting it kind of do the work for you, because that's not.
What's interesting about that scenario is that if you are seriously stuck just saying what's going to happen to my job, like something's probably going to happen to your job, right?
Right,
like,
because you put yourself in that space to ask that question.
Well, let's just say, first of all, it's probably going to impact all the jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, are you just going to wait for that to happen, or are you going to be curious and you're going to develop yourself into the next version of whatever yourself or your role or your trajectory is, as with the agency and active participation that would require? I mean, if you're literally waiting around to see if something's going to happen, like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to pull the rug out from under you, most likely, right? And so I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's healthy to say, no, we're all safe, right? And
totally.
I know I'm not putting those words in your mouth. I know that some people do that. And at the same time, like, I don't think it's all bad news either.
Yeah.
But it's like the future is there for the people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. Like that to me is kind of what I think about when I think about tools like that. So especially tools that have the ability to potentially change everything, right?
Yeah.
So so is there anything that you're doing at Woods Bagot or in your career that you were just like, no way, we can do this now? I think that's kind of like, it feels a little sci-fi on some level, right? Where it's like, Hollywood and storytelling has kind of painted a picture that we have moved into
Mm-hmm.
on many levels in many different with many kinds of technologies, right? And sometimes it takes a lot longer than
Yeah.
anybody thinks, and
Yeah.
then other things go really quickly. But it seems to me like there's I mean I see it all the time on this podcast when people talk about the kind of work that they're doing. It's like no way, like
Mm.
you can do real time, CFD modeling on projects for sustainability, real time. Like it's incredible. Like we used
Yeah.
to have to send that out and it would
It's
take weeks
wild.
for that to come back and then we'd make a change and we'd do it again. And but it's stuff like that where I mean that actually does have an AI tie-in because it's the training data
Mm-hmm.
that enabled that to happen,
Yeah.
right? Super interesting kind of stuff. And so I'm just curious with the stuff that you're employing in practice, is there stuff that you're
Yeah.
particularly proud of or excited about?
So we're early in our journey for sure. And I think maybe we've been saying that for like 2 years at this point, but
Yeah.
I think it's
It's
important
like
to
you hear
maybe,
everybody say, "Oh, it's early days, early days."
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
Perpetual early days.
and it's probably going to be early days for like a decade, I think,
Right.
because this is going to, it's going to just go.
Hmm.
But I think what's been really interesting, there's a couple of things. So, we've gotten started or not gotten started, but we've been for a while now, I guess, the exploration in image generation and video and walkthroughs and kind of augmenting the visual capabilities is awesome, right? And I
Mm.
think it's only the wow moments are when it's new for someone else, right? And so that the sharing factor is really a huge part of it, is being able to collaborate and my colleague Alex Wilson, big shout out, has done an incredible job of kind of creating a collaborative space and capacity for sharing in this way where everyone involved and who is continuing to get involved in the visual narration side of things is it's community, right? So I think the wow factor from that perspective has been the community that's being built on this change and this evolution and way of
Mm.
working. So that's been really cool. I'm less on the image side. I'm kind of in the everything else space because that's where that's just where I've landed. But again, as that kind of extracurricular. And I think what's been really fun is for me, it's been speaking to the different disciplines. So not architecture, not interior designers, not kind of urban designers, but like legal and risk and finance and PMC, like our people and culture, so HR. Speaking to all of the all of the disciplines that make the business work and being able to tap into um, you know ways of showing change in that space and just being like, look at this possibility, and having those conversations and really kind of starting to get those moments of from others, right? Like, oh, this is,
Hmm.
oh, wow. Um, in either seeing like a code being written really fast or, analysis, kind of reporting and things
Yeah.
just coming out of asking the questions. I think that's been really great so far. And it's such a early, early time.
Do you find that those things that you see that you talk to people about spark ideas in what things that you might want to apply them to that's different,
Yeah.
but oh, wow, that's cool. What if I do that to this? I think that's
Yeah.
a really interesting part of when you have a business with different business units in it
Yes.
that are all kind of working.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're pulling in the same direction, sometimes they're pulling in different directions.
Yeah.
But there's, like I said earlier, like by kind of spreading the tools out amongst everybody, you
Hmm.
never know where the good ideas are going to
Yeah.
come from.
And like,
And
yeah,
that's neat.
it is neat. Like you can see how excited I get about it because it's like when everyone gets a little spark of something, or there's a realization that, oh, hey, we actually can connect in this way, or our stuff
Yeah.
works together over here. It's just like those moments of, yeah, just excitement.
Yeah. I'm
That's really
curious
cool.
how that kind of trickles down to small firms that don't have all these different departments and people in different
Mm,
areas being curious about different things when you're a company of one, right? Who gets
yeah,
to do all of it. And then there's only so much time in the day.
right.
It's definitely
That
a
is,
disadvantage there. And so you kind of have to pick and choose who you might
you
follow
could schedule.
online as
Yeah,
somebody who's doing that kind of on your behalf that is totally open to share it.
yeah.
I think that's where social media, YouTube, whatever
Hmm.
podcasts come into play a lot more. But you also then have to have the time to consume that information. But
Yes.
I find so many times where I'm just listening to something and it's like, oh, okay, that it doesn't have anything to do with their application, but the idea
Yeah.
applies to something I'm doing. And then that was R&D on my
Yeah.
behalf, you know, and all I had to do was kind of take it and turn it a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I can apply it to what I'm doing. I think that's maybe a way to kind of approach that. But big firms, I
Definitely.
mean, you have resources, you've got
Yeah.
people in departments and doing things, and it's a different
Dare I
beast
say we're still under resourced, you know, like I think that's the thing is like
always.
there's never enough. And that's for better or for worse, a a driver of change, but then can also be like just crushing, right? Because we are limited, we are finite in our ability just as humans. Um,
Mm,
and I think accepting that there are limitations, that it's okay to have maybe, you know, the middle kind of expectation for output versus, you know, the topmost
full throttle
grandiose.
all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what an exhausting way to exist. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's about tempering and, you know, trying to avoid FOMO because that's hard. But having maybe that grounding mechanism, even if you are one or like small firm, just having that way of going, okay, this is what we can do now. This is what I can do now. And this is what I'd like to do in 6 months, and just remembering that, you know, this is a journey. We're all on it. There's money at the end of it for for businesses, of course. So there, you know, there's you can't avoid the commercial kind of necessity of all of this, but um, I think there's greater value in keeping the human approach at the center of it, keeping that curiosity going, and keeping the velocity behind human exploration and human first technology is kind of the way forward.
Hmm.
Again, idealist. I don't know that we're all going in that way, or, you
Well,
know,
okay, so I have kind of a provocative, maybe last question, last topic, because I think that would have been a great place to end, but I just can't leave it. I just can't leave it
yeah,
right there.
please.
So, do you see a potential future where, and this ties into this idea of, you know, people saying what's going to happen to our jobs being kind of like a huge concern, but do you actually see a future, and we can just limit this to architecture, where you actually don't need as many people to do the things? Because, like you said, you're always under resourced, but I think I'm actually seeing, and I'm sure you are too on some level, it's like, whoa, uh, I can get through a lot more processing in
Hmm.
a shorter amount of time. We get to decide what we're going to do at that time, but I think it also starts to become a conversation around like maybe we're not going to hire that extra person. Maybe
Hmm.
that person we're not going maybe we're not going to get rid of anybody, but maybe we're not going to hire the extra person
Yeah.
to do that kind of thing. I mean, I headline today like Amazon laid off
Mm.
14,000 to something like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Huge number,
Yeah,
right?
that's massive.
And so like you don't just automatically get to have the job.
No.
That's part of the conversation. But I think the other part is like, well, what are you actually seeing? Because do we have a point where we're just comfortably resourced and we don't have to hire more people, but we don't necessarily need to do it with less people? Do you see a future where there is just less people involved in this process? Like, what do you think? I mean, just we're just reading the tea leaves here.
Yeah, it is. This is an interesting provocation because we're not going to have fewer people. I think, from a numbers
Well,
game.
maybe.
Well,
I mean, if you
I
look at
don't,
all the
yeah,
there's a certain countries for sure are going to have
yeah,
issues with population. Yeah,
yeah. There's so many
but
bigger
yeah,
conversations behind all of this, bigger
there are.
handholds in all of it. But like, um, maybe it's maybe it's a mentality, like what's enough, um, in terms of.
That's not a capitalist mentality, that's for sure.
How dare I? Oh no.
Define enough. Yeah.
What? Um, yeah, I guess there is like the future of work, right? What
Hmm.
does that actually look like? And what does it look like for students coming out of university? And what does it look like for juniors? And I mean, wow, what a time to be
Yeah. What does it look like as
oh,
an animation graduate right now? What
oh
does it
man.
mean? Right.
Yeah.
That's scary. I
Well,
mean, you just.
so maybe okay. The the thing that we all have as uh, a unique selling point is our personality, right? And it's ourselves.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
we have ourselves as um, maybe the most valuable part of our portfolio, right? Our personalities, our I don't like, I think soft skills is not the way to describe it anymore. But it's our empathy, our curiosity, our enthusiasm, our passion, which is really quite difficult to visualize or put into words. And it really requires that human contact component to make that legitimate to someone else. But that maybe has to be where we start to look, which is
Mm.
a hard thing to imagine when AI is conducting interviews now.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
uh,
it's reading the job applications. It's
yeah,
reading the CVs. It's
yeah,
automatically deciding who's meeting the requirements. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it is like, wow,
Wow,
what a
it's
weird
yeah,
spot.
it's like does the gap widen? I feel like we might finish this in just a question scenario. There's
Yeah,
like I mean no
that's fine.
like pretty bow
Ongoing
wrapping it up.
conversation.
Yeah, it
Right.
is an ongoing conversation, but it also I think again we can't just let stuff happen to us, and so there's such we're only limited by our own imaginations in this space, and so like
Mm.
I read an article the other day, a thing in Medium or essay in Medium about this guy who's a data analyst and was looking for a new job, was just struggling, having a hard time, and was like, hang on a second, like why am I not showing my data analyst self in my approach? So he took the approach of just documenting his entire career as a dashboard, right? And it's like, oh, like it seems obvious when you consider that, but it's not. That's not what people do. You have a
Hmm.
CV and you might have a portfolio of work that's very static PDF.
You do what everybody does. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, how do you differentiate yourself? And again, we're only limited by our own imaginations. And so, yeah, I think I don't know what the answer is, but I think we have to ask ourselves those questions of like, well, how am I how am I different? And
Yeah.
yeah, that is
Well, I
that's
appreciate
another
you.
4 hours, I think.
I appreciate you attempting to go down the theoretical. I mean, you said earlier that a lot of your stuff was theoretical, and I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
this is one of those things where it's like the conversations need to happen, and they need to happen in public, and it doesn't mean there aren't going to be wrong answers either, like that, and that should be totally encouraged because
Yes.
that's how you figure out what the right answers are over time, or at least the most current right answer,
Yes.
as
The
it
most
may be
current
known
right
as.
answer.
So
I guess, yeah,
yeah.
we can only do the best that we can with the information that we have at the time. So that's a horrible political statement there. Yeah, we just gotta do our best and
Well,
help
thank
each other
you
out.
so much for having, and thank you so much for having this conversation. I appreciate it. It's been really fun, and it's great to catch up with you and see what's happened in the last 2 years. And a lot. It is a lot across the board.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on that journey with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for asking the questions, Evan. It was a really good conversation.
I'll put links to Ashley in the show notes and other things that have come up during the conversation. So be sure to check those out and talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks to our sponsors and thanks to our members this week. Find out how you can become a member at trxl.co. And I'll talk to you again next week.